Hey, howdy friends, welcome back to my game room again. Hey, I've got an interesting game here for you today. It's a game from the 19th century that I've read about a couple of times, different resources. It's always been very intriguing to me for several reasons. Mostly it's about the history of the game. Now, games do tend to reflect current events to a certain degree, especially current values, current challenges, you might say, and this is exactly that kind of a game. Let me get into that history just a little bit, and then we'll have a look at how to play the game itself. Europe in the 19th century seems to have been in a constant state of war. Between the egotistical royal houses, rebellions against those royal houses, and the struggles of ethnic groups for self-determination, the names and borders of the nation-states all across the subcontinent were shifting. Mapmakers and ministers of foreign affairs fought, too, to keep up with the latest treaties and declarations being made. In 1870, one such conflict came to be known in the English-speaking world as the Franco-Prussian War. In France, it's simply called the War of 1870, and rightfully so. It technically lasted only from July 1870 until January of 1871, just a tad over 7 months. The Kingdom of Prussia led the North German Confederation against France, which was trying to assert itself as the dominant power in the region. Prussian Chancellor Otto von Bismarck hoped to unite the several German states into one nation. He deliberately provoked the French into declaring war. France was vastly outgunned, her troops overwhelmed by the well-trained German military machine, and an armistice was enacted quickly. The effort achieved what Bismarck was after, and the German Empire under Wilhelm I became a major international power. Significant within the short-lived conflict was the Siege of Paris. On the 19th of September 1870, Prussian forces began to lay siege to the city. The government of the French Republic called for citizens to rally into a great guerrilla army and attack the Prussians and their supply lines. But Bismarck began to fiercely bombard the city. In the month of January, they fired nearly 12,000 shells into the city. That's 300 to 400 per day. The siege of the city caused great hardships for the population, especially for the poor, from cold and hunger. The French begged for peace and officially recognized the new German Empire with the Treaty of Frankfurt in May 1871. Some enterprising young Parisian was inspired by the incessant cannon fire to imagine the conflict on a game board. Yes, even as the siege was raging, this unknown game designer was developing a game board, game pieces to represent the combatants, and rules as to their movements and objectives. In the summer of 1871, the game was presented to the public, and the public apparently enjoyed rewriting recent history in their Parisian parks and parlors. The game's popularity, like the war itself, didn't last very long, but the interesting and unique aspects of the game have survived as a favorite of collectors and historians, at least. The Siege of Paris is featured in a couple of books here. This is the big Borderman's book of games, and it's also here in the big R.C. Bell book of games. I created this version of the game here for myself, using a copy of the board from that R.C. Bell book. It's not the prettiest board I've seen for the game, but it's a nice crisp picture. So I used chess pieces, obviously, to recreate the different ranks in the game. So it's a very intriguing game. Let's look at the rules to the game here now. Then I'll come back for a kind of a wrap-up when that's over. Okay. The game can be played by two players, one controlling all of the attacking forces, and the other would play the defenders within the besieged citadel. According to the original English translation from 1875, it can even be played by 5 players, but there's no explanation as to how this would work. I assume each attacking force would be shared somehow. However, the most popular method is to play with 3, each controlling either the black or the white attacking pieces against the defender with their red pieces. The game is set up as shown here in either case. The pieces within the citadel may be set up any way the defending player would like to start the game, but the attackers are always started as shown here, set up on their own color. Before we go into the playing of the game, Here are the goals for each player. For the defender, capture all the attacking soldiers and at least 6 of their officers. For the attacker, there are 2 possible wins. 1, block all possible moves for the defenders, a blocked game. Or 2, get 1 officer and 3 soldiers into the citadel. The order of the players' turns begins with the defender, who always makes the first move. The next move goes to the black attacker, then back again to the defender. Then the white attacker makes their move, and back again to the defender. This cycle continues throughout the game, with the defender responding to each attacker's move on both sides. For the defender, inside the citadel, all pieces move only 1 space on each turn, following the lines that connect the circles. After they leave the citadel, following one of the small arrows at the outer wall, different movement rules apply. The general will move in any direction a distance of 1 or 2 spaces on each turn. The colonel moves 1 square orthogonally on each turn. The soldiers move 1 square diagonally on each turn. While outside the citadel, they must stay on the color of the square they landed upon when they exited the citadel. If a soldier returns to the citadel, it may exit to the other color. And finally, no more than 3 defending soldiers may be on the same color square at any time. All of the defending pieces can capture attacking soldiers by displacement, that is, by landing in the same square with them and removing them from the game. But pieces cannot be captured within the citadel. It is a safe zone for the attackers. According to one source, capturing is compulsory, but that is not specified in the original rules. Finally, if an attacking piece is covered, it cannot be captured. In other words, if an attacking piece is next to another attacking piece which could move into its space, it cannot be captured. Here are a couple examples. This soldier cannot be captured. It is covered by the adjacent soldier. This soldier cannot be captured. It is covered by the colonel. This soldier cannot be captured. It is covered by the general. For the attackers, none of the attackers can move backwards towards their starting edge of the board, and none of them can capture any other pieces. The generals move 1, 2, or 3 squares on each turn. Some rule sets say only 1 or 2, but the original English translation clearly says 1, 2, or 3. The colonels move orthogonally 1 or 2 squares on each turn. The lieutenants move diagonally 1 or 2 squares on each turn. The soldiers move diagonally 1 square on each turn. They always stay on the color they started on. And that's the entire rule set. For my own set, I created a set of player aid cards to help remember the move options. Also for my own set, I obviously used chess pieces to represent the different ranks. Some homemade sets I've seen use discs with pictures on them, more like the diagrams in this video animation. And so that's the Siege of Paris. It's a very interesting little game. I hope you get a chance to play it sometime. Thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate your support. Be sure to click that subscription button if you haven't yet. And of course the little bell so we can remind you when a new episode is posted. And then check out the other links there to see some of the other games that we've been talking about in the past. Meanwhile, like I always say sometimes, be sure to play every day.